I wanted a crazy day of baseball, and I got it.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. By all means, look at my lower third. You call me Sully. This is the sixth season I'm here at Locked On. I am wrapping up the regular season, and this week I'm also wrapping up doing double duty as host of Locked On A's. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Booking.com. Booking.com, more like Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And last thing is, let's take a look at the trivia question. I said yesterday was the birthday of the last person to win a postseason MVP for playing for the losing team. Someone who guesses a lot is Stephen Colatera, who said Bobby Richardson. Not the answer. Bobby Richardson did indeed win a World Series MVP for the losing team, but that is the incorrect answer. However, who got it right? Brian Nash at Brian NA 01252347 had it down as Jeffrey Leonard with the Giants against the Cardinals in 1987. With that name, Brian Nash could be a bot from Russia, but that bot from Russia did indeed get the trivia answer correct. All right, let's just talk about it. There's so many things that were absolutely banana boats that happened on Sunday, and I actually went to a ball game, and that was also banana boats as well. Let's go first and foremost, the craziest game of the day. I have no compunction of saying this was the craziest game of the day, was Milwaukee versus the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have not been playing particularly well, and they needed to have a big win against Milwaukee. By the way, am I the one who's noticed that Arizona and Milwaukee are having a strange rivalry? And they played a dramatic division series in 2011. They played a wild card series last year, and they could face off this year. I digress. The Diamondbacks got off to they were up 8-0. Ketel Marte, Perdomo, Josh Bell, everyone was on fire. Next thing you know, and Suarez homered. It was 8-0 early, and looked like, okay, this is going to be one of those days where the Diamondbacks just blow the doors off the dump. But then the Brewers started chipping away. Now, it wasn't as great and dramatic as the big home runs that Arizona was getting, but you saw Perkins gets a single and Frelick gets a double, and next thing you know, Chirino gets a single, and next thing you know, it's 8-4, and then Rhys Hoskins makes it 8-5, and then Adames makes it 8-6, and the next thing you know, it is 9-9 on a Rhys Hoskins hit, and then Bauer's little of all the big power and home runs and hits into the gap. It was a ground ball that didn't make it to the third baseman. Suddenly it's 10-9 Arizona. 10-9 Milwaukee, I'm sorry. And they scored. Arizona was up 8-0 in the third. And the Brewers outscored Arizona 8-1 in the final 4 innings of the game. It was crazy town. Absolute crazy town. And with that, Arizona, who is, they're 5-5, but they've allowed the Mets to tie them. Because the Mets, even though they're facing Zach Wheeler, who is terrific, the Mets just held on, and Brandon Nimmo hit the home run. Edwin Diaz got a 6-out save. And next thing you know, the Mets and the D-backs are tied. The Mets, talk about the times I'm wrong. I've been wrong a bunch of times this year. And probably no bigger thing have I been wrong about than the Mets, who I thought their strong June and their strong July were flukes because they had those great months and they were still on the outside looking in. I said, you would trade. You've got assets to trade and no one else is trading. And you're not going to make the playoffs. I said that over and over again. And it looks like I'm wrong. And not only could they potentially make the playoffs, they could be the second wild card team. Now, granted, whoever they would face, whether it be Milwaukee or San Diego, is going to be a big uphill battle. But you know what? You take your shot. And the fact that Atlanta have won their last 2 games. Now, they're 2 games out. They're 2 games out with about 6 to play. And Atlanta and the Mets are going to be facing head-to-head in one of the biggest series of the year. For Atlanta, this is a playoff series. But it was made this way because of the craziness of Arizona not being able to hold on to an early 8-0 lead. All right. I said in yesterday's podcast, in order to have the anarchy that I want in the American League, Boston has to show up. Now, Boston is basically out of it. 4 games out with about 6 to play. Everything has to go right, and that's not been the Red Sox way. But they were facing Minnesota in a doubleheader because of the rainout that happened on Saturday. And I said, in order for us to have the anarchy I want in the American League, the Red Sox have to really play the Twins well. Well, Tristan Casas said hi and hit 3 home runs in the opening game. And the Red Sox absolutely bombed the Twins. They took an 8-1 lead, and unlike Arizona, they held on to it. And then in the second game, now Casas didn't have his, the 3 home run. By the way, he got like 3 home runs by the 5th inning. And everyone was thinking he may have a 4 home run game. All right, we got greedy. But Jaron Duran showed up. Gonzalez got a 3-run home run. And you saw Cutter Crawford pitching into the 8th inning. And it was a 3-run 5th, because remember, the Twins took a 2-0 lead. But then a 6-run 6th inning, where it just turned into that scene from the Bugs Bunny baseball episode where they were all like conga lining around the base path. That's what it looked like. And so the Red Sox didn't just sweep a doubleheader from the Twins. They clobbered them. A combined score of 17-4 over the 2 games. The Red Sox offense woke up. Now, in order to make it truly chaotic, you need to have some help from other teams. Well, the Tigers won an absolute thriller with Baltimore. It was a back-and-forth game of which the hero of heroes was Mr. Meadows, Mr. Parker Meadows. Now, he did not get a hit. He did not get on base. But he made a leaping catch, bringing back a home run that would have given, I believe it would have either tied the game or given the Orioles the lead. All I know is that in a critical moment, he made an amazing catch. And with that, even though the Orioles were playing, the Tigers were playing basically an opener situation, Torkelson home runs. Carpenter hit 2 home runs. And next thing you know, the Tigers won 4-3. And with that, with the Tigers' victory and the 2 Minnesota Twins losses, for the first time since Memorial Day, probably before Memorial Day, but I don't pay attention before Memorial Day, the Twins are not a playoff team. They have fallen out. And only to make it any stranger, the Giants completed the sweep of the Kansas City Royals, Blake Snell making a great case for free agency against Seth Lugo, who may win the American League Cy Young Award. Actually, Scooble probably would, but Lugo's been an amazing signing. 2-0. And you know, I say it's never the right time of the year to lose an entire week of games. Well, the Royals lost a whole week of games. And with that, they are now tied, not with Minnesota and not with Cleveland, who they were tied with a couple weeks ago. They're tied with Detroit and only one game ahead of Minnesota. In other words, Kansas City, who just a few weeks ago were tied with Cleveland, could miss the playoffs. The one team that let us all down for anarchy purposes are Seattle, who lost a walk-off game to the Rangers, who, by the way, are eliminated, which means we are not going to have, for the 24th straight year, we're not going to have a back-to-back champion. The same teams win every year, really. But a walk-off victory for the Texas Rangers prevented the Mariners from winning. If the Mariners had won, they would be one game back. I can't help but think about the Mariners, the Red Sox, and the Rays. The Mariners are 2 games out. That may be a very tall hill to climb, although they're going to be facing the A's to finish the year after the emotion of them playing in Oakland for the last time. So the Mariners could make up some ground, but they're 2 games back. Boston's 4 games back. Tampa's 4 games back. I can't help but think about those teams looking back. If they had just won one more game each month, one dumb game that's got away from them. Every team's going to lose games. You're going to have games that are back and forth, like what happened between Baltimore and Detroit today. Fine. You're going to have some games where a pitcher just was on their game, like what happened with Blake Snell against Seth Lugo today. You can't. I mean, sometimes you got to throw a hammer. What are you going to do? The guy was on their game. But the dumb losses, like the one Arizona had today, where they were up by 8 and they just let the other team chip away. Seattle, Boston, and Tampa must be thinking, if 4 of those dumb games turned out to be wins instead of losses, they'd be right in the middle of this. You can't lose the dumb games. You can't. And you can't make dumb decisions. And when we come back, I'm going to bring up someone whose name I will never know, who did something really stupid today. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, I'm going to tell you a little something that happened to your pal Sully today. I went to the Dodger game. With several people who I work with, and someone bought a big block of Dodger tickets. And when I agreed to go to it, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to see Shohei Ohtani's 50th home run. Well, he took care of that in Miami. By the way, I want to say one thing. Some people have asked me, do I think that's the greatest individual game performance of all time? I think it's right up there, but there's one thing that sullied it, if you will. Pun maybe intended. I'm not afraid to intend my puns. The fact that he got his final home run off of a position player, that I'm really sick of position players pitching. And so that is the one thing that I think would take it away from the best performance of all time, but it's got to be up there somewhere. And the fact that he didn't get his 50th home run off of a position player, I think keeps it in play. Anyway, I went to the game at Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers were playing. And you'll see I recorded some stuff from the ballpark, and that'll be on a later episode. Yamamoto was pitching, and let's just say, if this was a tune-up for the postseason, this stunk. This stunk with a capital stunk. The Rockies were up 3 runs before the Dodgers even came to bat. And, I know he's warming up and everything like that, but the Dodgers need someone to give them some length. And they used every pitcher that I think I pitched an inning today. It just was a parade of pitchers. And for the whole game, Colorado just looked like they were in charge. They're up 5-1 at one point. And the Dodgers chipped back. Both Hernandez has got a home run. Kiki Hernandez and Teoscar Hernandez both got home runs. Why couldn't I think of Teoscar's first name for a second? And Shohei Ohtani, of course, everyone stood up every time he came up. And he got 3 hits. And he stole a couple of bases, just piling it on, making me think, is he going for 60-60? Is the man going for 60-60? But, in a chip away, it was a 1-run game. Beautiful day. And, of course, some fans leave. And I'm not one to get on Dodger fans about that because I've driven on the 110 before. It's a pain in the ass. But it's a 1-run game. And if you're not going to stay for a 1-run game in the bottom of the 9th, why did you even get into your car? But I saw something today. We were in the upper deck, not the highest deck, but the second highest deck, a little bit up the first base line. That's my favorite view from Dodger Stadium. And I saw at the top of the 9th, a parent got up with their kids and said, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. The parents were like hurrying them. And I saw the son and the daughter look at the parents, looking back, looking at the parents, looking back at the game, knowing that Shohei Ohtani was coming up in a 1-run game in the bottom of the 9th. And I even said to the kid, stay, watch him. Not that it's my kid or I had any right to say it, but I could see the terror in the kid's eyes. He didn't want to miss a Shohei Ohtani at bat in the 9th inning of a 1-run game. And I looked over the parents, and I looked over the kids, and what the hell are you doing? I didn't say that, but I did go like, and the parents said, let's go. And they walked up, and the kid had this look like, and he just looked like he was watching his Christmas presents burning in the freaking chimney. And the nanosecond the kid was gone, Shohei Ohtani hit a game-tying home run in the bottom of the 9th. This kid clearly was a huge Dodger fan. He was all decked out in all the Dodger blue. He had an Ohtani jersey on and everything. And the parents were like, come on. And the kid didn't get to see Ohtani hit a game-tying home run in the bottom of the 9th. I took out my cell phone and I called Child Protective Services. It's time for someone from the state to visit that house and remove those children from those parents. That is parental failure. Absolute. You, mother and father of that child, you failed. That child went there to get a memory of Ohtani. Come on. Acting like the house was on fire. And the kid looking back, I want to see the thing. And the very next batter was Mookie Betts, and he hit a walk-off home run. You had the kids sitting out there for the game, and the whole time, because remember the Rockies jumped up to a 3-0 lead in the first, the whole time the Dodgers were losing until those 2 pitches, one to Ohtani and one to Mookie Betts. Why can't the Red Sox get players like Mookie Betts? If you're out there, you failed. Now, there was someone who was sitting across the aisle who saw me go. I was not being subtle. as the kids and the parents were gone, I was not being subtle that I was mad at those parents. And one guy said, well, you know what? There's a whole running the bases thing after the game. And they were trying to get to that. Yeah. But there was also a game. And it was the bottom of the ninth. How could you be so unaware of what's happening? It'd be like when my mother and father took me to see Star Wars as a kid. And then, oh, it's the attack on the Death Star. Let's go. Time. No, you get the idea. Let's go. Let's go. The whole thing's building up to either the attack of the Death Star or Shohei Ohtani coming up as the tying run in the bottom of the ninth. And you're trying to beat the traffic to do the run around the bases? I'm now going to do an impersonation of that kid running around the bases. I can't believe I didn't see the Ohtani homer. You failed, Mom and Dad. You failed your children. And now they're going to grow up and try to be artists. Today's episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, more like Booking.yeah. Explore cities all around the United States, especially as a baseball fan. Check out their stadium. Check out the cuisine. And with Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the U.S., you can go incognito to your rival city. Do you know what? I used Booking.com this summer. I went on a fabulous baseball trip. First, I went into Buffalo, and I checked out the Bisons when I was there. And by the way, Buffalo, beautiful city. Then over to Syracuse, where I saw the Syracuse Mets, stayed in a nice, safe hotel there. Then on my way to Cooperstown, where I stayed in a hotel right on the lake, but was still walking distance to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I did all of it through Booking.com. Booking.com delivers exactly the right stay for you in this country. And Booking.com can help you book a stay that's so close to where you want to be. No matter what team you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that look over stadiums to that fabulous place I stayed in Cooperstown, Booking.com has so many choices. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com. Yeah, Booking.yeah. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You can start your season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play your first $5 bet. Go to America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. One of the things I thought I would never see in my life is a team losing 120 games. I really never thought I'd see that. I thought that was always one of those things I would say, hey, the best teams win 60, or the best teams lose 60 and the worst teams win 60. That was always an adage I gave. And the Chicago White Sox lost to San Diego today, and they've lost 120 games. And with a week to go, and I don't think they're going to run the table, I think the record set by the 1962 Mets, always the symbol of futility in the history of baseball, is going to be matched and beaten. And that's amazing. By the way, let's give a huge tip of the cap to the Chicago White Sox social media team, because it must be a rough job to have this year, to be writing tweets or Instagram posts for a team that is historically terrible. And the last 3 games, one of the things that they do is when a game is over, every team does this on Twitter and on Instagram or whatever. When the game is over, they have a post which has the final score, win or lose. Here's the final score. And the last 3 games that the White Sox have lost, it just says final. This is one of them, says final. Can be found on the MLB app, as if to say, we don't even want to say it. The next one said final. The number of runs we scored was not greater than the number of runs they scored. And then the last one said, final, the other team scored more runs than us. Good for you for having fun for this. By the way, news breaking shortly before I recorded this, David Bell has been fired as the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. No great surprise there. The Reds have a lot of talent on this team, and they are 76-81. They cannot. They lost today, which means they cannot have a winning record this year, even if they win the rest of their games. There's a lot of talent on that team, and there is not a lot to show for it. And so, it's always a little weird when a manager is fired this late in the season, but maybe it's just a little bit of like, hey, we got to show fans that this is unacceptable for us too. And we're going to turn the page. If you're going to turn the page, I always wondered, do they come up to the manager and say, do you want to finish the season or not? But he is under contract for the next 2 years. They got to pay him for that. Freddie Benavides is going to be the interim manager, but you wonder if there's going to be people kicking the tires of Joe Madden. Remember when the Angels hired him, he was a future Hall of Famer. He didn't suddenly get stupid. And as I mentioned on the podcast a few days ago, there's a bunch of teams that could use a new manager. One of them is the Cincinnati Reds. That there's already talent there and they need someone to take it to a new direction. And having a potential Hall of Fame manager like Joe Madden with a chip on his shoulder willing to prove something, that would be really interesting for me. That would be the whole Jim Leland taking over the Tigers situation. Or Bruce Bochy taking over the Rangers for that matter. So we'll see what happens, but the Cincinnati Reds are now on the clock for coming up with a new manager situation. Who knows? Maybe it's Freddie Benavides. Who am I to say? I do know that one of Bruce Bochy's lieutenants, Roberto Kelly, is a former Cincinnati Red. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Leads us to today's trivia question, because I looked this up. I didn't know it off the top of my head. I wonder if you knew it off the top of your head. Who was the manager of the Reds before David Bell? I forgot who it was. I had to look it up. Who was the manager just before David Bell? That's the trivia question. It's harder than you think. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about a crazy day of baseball and hoping that this craziness goes through the week. And please, parents, do not leave when Ohtani is at bat. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.